On location from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, we have another fan feedback show on this edition of Locked On LA Kings.
You are Locked On Kings, your daily podcast on the Los Angeles Kings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, Kings fans, welcome to Locked On LA Kings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for making Locked On LA Kings your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts. We'd love for you to leave us a positive comment on Apple Podcasts if you're a fan of the show. And we're on YouTube. Please like and subscribe if you're enjoying this content. I'm Eddie Garcia, your host of Locked On LA Kings. I've worked in sports media for the past 30 years, 20 plus years at the Fox Sports Radio Network. I'm also co-host of the Puck Podcast, a weekly NHL review show that's been putting out content for the past 30 years, and a passionate LA Kings fan for over 30 years. Now through September the 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Well, you may be able to tell this show is a little bit different. I'm on location in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, getting ready to go to an NFL game this Sunday. You probably know from watching previous shows that my wife's a big Chargers fan. I'm a Pittsburgh Steelers fan. They're playing each other this Sunday, and so we're here in Pennsylvania for a weekend trip to check out the game. I'm doing this show on my laptop in my hotel room, so it may look and sound a little bit different. I'm trying to keep my voice down a little bit, but we do have another fan feedback show to give to you. But before we get into all that, we do have some news to pass along, and it is some concerning news. Kings forward Arthur Kaliyev suffered an undisclosed injury on the second day of training camp when he took a hit into the corner from defenseman Kyle Burrows. He left the ice under his own power, but he did not return. LA Kings insider and friend of the show, Zach Dooley, quoted Kings coach Jim Hiller as saying, well, not much. Basically, Hiller didn't have an update on Kaliyev and said that they would know more tomorrow on Saturday. So obviously, fingers crossed that Artie is okay. Hopefully it's a minor injury and everyone is just being extra cautious about it because it's just obviously the second day of training camp. Things are just getting going. So needless to say, if you follow the show on social media, we'll definitely post any updates we see over the weekend on Kaliyev, but we will have an update hopefully on what his status is on Monday's show as well. Again, hopefully it's just something minor going forward. He'll be okay. But certainly an early concern for a player that was looking to get a clean slate and get his career going again with the LA Kings. But that's the news from training camp, day 2 of training camp back in Los Angeles. But this is a Kings fan feedback show, so let's go ahead and get right into your emails. And our first email comes from Scott. He's in Simi Valley, and he says, the random fan interview is a great idea. I enjoyed the episode. Hope to see more of those. After watching, though, I wanted to chime in on Rob Blake. I don't think it tarnishes any fans' loyalty to elevate Rob Blake, or I should say to evaluate Rob Blake as GM independently from his playing career. I love Rob Blake. Unless he totally ruins the team, I always will. But quite honestly, if I owned a business and employed a manager to oversee my assets in personnel and finances, and Rob Blake was my hire, by this time he'd be gone. Yes, he's done some good things, but fans need to be able to separate between Blake's playing career and his tenure as GM. It is true the Kings aren't bad. In fact, they are pretty good. You're not going to win the cup every year, and being an NHL GM is not an easy job. But when it comes to Rob Blake making the decisions he's made, it's not like he didn't have time to think them over. It's not like he didn't have experience as an assistant GM before taking over as GM. And it's also not like he didn't, or he shouldn't be a fair judge of a player's character, having spent all those years as a player himself. Blake's decisions have hurt the Kings. They're still a good team, but they could have and should have been in a better position in terms of roster depth, the prospect pool, and in cap space at this point. Should we be okay with Blake's job performance because of our fondness for him as a player? No, absolutely not. As always, I'm still excited for the upcoming season. As long as Blake is still in charge, I sincerely wish him well. I hope the new direction he's trying to steer the team in pays off in playoff success. And that was Scott in Simi Valley. And I totally agree with you, Scott. I don't know. I can only speak for myself in that I agree with you. Unless Rob Blake is just the worst general manager on the face of the earth, what he did as a player, what he did as a player. What he does as a GM is what he does as a GM. I can separate the two. Sometimes it's hard to look at a individual and not see everything he's done. But for me, he was still a great player. His number 4 is deserving of being in the rafters at Crypto. He's a Hall of Famer and is a King great, and he always will be. Hopefully, what he does as general manager for me, and it sounds like for you, and I think a lot of their Kings fans, it will still be, what he did as a player is still what he did as a player. And that shouldn't change things. But you're right. We shouldn't give him any kind of a free pass because he was a former Kings great. We've seen this in other sports. We've seen it in hockey as well. The Detroit Red Wings are going through it right now with Steve Yzerman, one of the greatest Red Wings of all time. He's now running that team. He hasn't gotten them back in the playoffs. Patience is wearing thin up there in Hockey Town, and it's a difficult thing when you've had a former great player now running your team and things aren't working out. Here in Los Angeles, we saw it with Magic Johnson when he coached the Lakers. That did not go well, but Magic is still one of the greatest Lakers of all time. So I think that most fans can and should be able to separate those two types of things. Our next email comes from Oliver, and he's in Roy, Utah, which is north of Salt Lake City. And he says, big fan, listen every week. And every week I intend to email you, and I never get to it, but I was able to sit down and make it happen this week. We moved to northern Utah almost 3 years ago from LA, and I could not be more excited about being able to see the Kings locally now. Last week you had an email from a listener in Salt Lake City who asked about staying a Kings fan or adopting the new Utah team. I will no doubt stay a diehard Kings fan, but root for Utah when not playing the Kings. Here's a question for you. I have a friend who's a Ducks fan. Long term, who would you be more excited about, the Kings or the Ducks? I have to say my friend is much more excited about the Ducks going forward than I tend to be with the Kings. Your thoughts? And again, that was Oliver in Utah. Well, I would say look, I'm more of a person that is not as enamored with the stockpiling of young players as others are, because a lot of times it doesn't work out. I'm a fan of the Pittsburgh Pirates in baseball. They've been bad for a very, very long time, and they've stockpiled high draft picks over and over and over. There were many times when I was told as a Pirates fan that the Pirates had the best prospect pool in all of baseball with all these great minor leaguers, and it hasn't translated into them winning anything. So you can have high draft picks, you can collect young talent, you also still have to develop that talent, and then once you do have that talent, you have to be able to retain it. There's been some pretty good players the Pirates drafted, and then once they got good, they just left because they weren't going to stay here in Pittsburgh long term. But the Ducks are stockpiling a lot of talent. They've had a lot of high draft picks, but in the end, you still have to develop them, and they still have to get on the ice for you and help you turn into a good team. So there's been plenty of examples in the NHL lately of teams that have had a ton of picks, stockpiled talent, and it hasn't translated. Arizona Coyotes, now Utah, Ottawa Senators, Buffalo Sabres have missed the playoffs 13 straight years. They've obviously gotten a lot of high draft picks over those years, and it hasn't translated. So I understand, stockpiling talent. And look, I'm just as guilty of being excited about the next generation of Kings as anybody, I guess. But in the end, it has to be a balance. It can't just be about losing, getting all these young players, and then eventually you think that's just going to turn into, you're going to be this powerful team. It doesn't always work out that way. So I guess to answer your question, because the Kings are, in the playoffs, they've been a more competitive franchise. I think you should be more excited about the Kings than the Ducks. The Ducks are a pretender until proven otherwise. And I know I don't like the Ducks, so you can take that for what it's worth. Kings fans are going to chime in on prospects and goalies. They'll do that next here on Locked On LA Kings, your team every day. Hey, those of us that live in LA, very lucky to have so many opportunities to see live sporting events. I'm obviously excited to see a live sporting event here in Pittsburgh as the Steelers take on the Chargers, and we were able to get our tickets through Gametime. And it's not always just about sports. You've got concerts and theater events as well. But no matter what you're into, you need to use Gametime for all your ticket needs. Gametime has a new feature called Gametime Picks that makes getting tickets to your favorite live events even easier. Gametime Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. You can see the Dodgers for less than $40, LAFC tickets less than $25. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download Gametime today. What time is it? Game time. All right, we continue with our Kings fan feedback show as we are doing this here live to tape from Pittsburgh. Our next email comes from Oren, and he is in parts unknown. He did not give his location, but he says, "Great job on the Rookie Faceoff show. Very informative. How can I watch footage of the players you talked about? Thanks for the great podcast. Appreciate all your hard work." All right, thank you, Oren. I guess it depends on how much you're willing to invest in wanting to see some of the players we talked about in the Rookie Faceoff show, like Kings first-round draft pick Liam Greentree. He's going to be playing for the Windsor Spitfires again this year in the CHL, and there is something called CHL TV where you can watch all of the junior leagues in Canada, Western Hockey League, Ontario Hockey League, where Liam Greentree plays, the Quebec Maritime Junior Hockey League. It's $125 a season. You can go to watch.chl.ca and you can sign up for it for this season. So if you're willing to invest that amount of money in seeing not only Liam Greentree, but a lot of the other Kings players, Carter George as well, if you're willing to spend the money, you can't see it. Otherwise, you can probably go on social media or maybe even YouTube and look up highlights of certain players, and things can get posted throughout the season. But yeah, it depends on where you are as well. Or and you say you're in parts unknown, because our next emailer is Andy in Guelph, Ontario. And he says, took a few weeks off from writing in, but listened regularly. Happy to see Kalia back if they couldn't get something of value. My only hope is that they give him a true role to start this year. I think we're all hoping for that. I'm still pumped for the Kings in Toronto on October 16th. That's my birthday, by the way. Have you heard of any release dates for the new jerseys? I assume they will release in Canada at the same time or very shortly after. I watched most of the player media availabilities, and I'm getting excited. I'm really on board with the identity of physicality. One last note, I plan to attend many junior games this year so I can see recent picks like Carter George, Liam Greentree, and Jared Woolley when they come to Guelph and play the Storm. I also plan to head to Owen Sound to see George more often. We have a family cottage in Sable Beach, which is very close to where the Attack play. I may not be in LA, but try to do my part where I can. Go Kings go, keep up the great work. And again, that came from our guy Andy up in Guelph in Canada. Andy, thanks for the email. Certainly would love if you're willing to do it, and you don't have to, but would be welcome if you or anybody else that is up in Canada and gets to attend some of these, these OHL games. From time to time, if you get to see Liam Greentree play or Carter George or any of the other Kings prospects, drop us a note. Let us know how they're doing. I've kind of got my hands full covering the Kings full time. I try to keep tabs when one of the Kings prospects does something worth mentioning. Obviously, I've got one eye going on in Ontario as well, Ontario, California, to see what the Reign are doing. So it's a little bit of a blind spot for me, but for those of you up in Canada who get to see these games more regularly, would love to get a note throughout the season if you're able to catch up on any of the Kings prospects and see how they're doing in the CHL this year. Up next, we've got Jim in Lakewood. He says, I wanted to compliment you for the show all year. It ain't easy keeping solid content going all summer. I applaud you for keeping the thread going, and now here we are. Your comments a few weeks back about this is the last time we'll talk about PLD. Well, that is incorrect. Not to sound like Debbie Downer here, but as soon as Kuemper goes 2-9 with a 3.45 goals against average and an .870 save percentage, we will be chatting again about how we had a great goalie last year who made an all-star team, Why don't we have that guy? Because we had to, because Blake had to get rid of him to get rid of PLD. So we will be talking about him again. You heard it here first. So Jim is saying that he's not a believer in Darcy Kuemper, and when he fails, then we will be bringing up Pierre-Luc Dubois again because we had to take Darcy Kuemper to get rid of Pierre-Luc Dubois. And in that context, I suppose that's possible. I will just say this. Even though Darcy Kuemper hasn't been great the last couple of years, I don't think he's going to be as bad as you think he's going to be. You said 2-9. I mean, last year, losing his starting job, Kuemper was 13, 14, and 3. He had a 3.31 goals against average and an 890 save percentage. So hard for me to believe that those numbers are going to be worse with the Kings than they were with the Capitals. I think the Kings are a better defensive team. I think Kuemper is motivated to get a fresh start here in LA. So he may not be as good as Cam Talbot. I could definitely see that. But do I think he's going to be as bad as the numbers that you indicated? I do not think so. But we shall see. And if that is the case, then maybe we will have to curse Pierre-Luc Dubois again. We go from one amateur goalie expert to another, and this is from Ed in Brea. He says, first off, good to see you at rookie camp. I saw Ed at rookie camp. He says, what I saw from Carter George, he's our goalie of the future. As of now, I think Eric Portillo might be a placeholder or so, because what I saw with George, he's the real deal. Poise, positioning, movement, excellent. As for now, Darcy Kuemper and David Rittich will be our goalies, and Eric Portillo and Phoenix Copley will be in Ontario. Carter George, to me, is 2 years away to be in Ontario. I'm optimistic that Kuemper can regain his form that helped him win a world championship and a Stanley Cup, and Rittich can give us be a solid backup. Even though I did like the 1-3-1 system, I am curious to see what Jim Hiller has to offer. Also, we agreed to a Chargers-Steelers bet, which the loser will wear the hat at a Kings game, which I will look forward to you wearing a Chargers hat, since your wife, too, will be celebrating the Chargers' guaranteed win in Pittsburgh. He says, goodbye to those terrible towels. Have a fun trip, as always, and go Kings go. That was Ed in Brea. Yes, I met Ed up at Kings rookie camp, and he said he wanted to make a bet because Ed is also a Chargers fan. So apparently, if the Chargers beat the Steelers, I have to wear a Chargers hat at a Kings game. And if the Steelers beat the Chargers, Ed is going to wear a Steelers hat at a Kings game. So I will just say, Ed, Justin Herbert apparently is not 100%, and there's a chance he may not play in this game. If that doesn't happen, then I definitely look forward to seeing you wear a Steelers hat at a Kings game here in the near future. All right, coming up, we have some more emails to share on this Kings fan feedback show. That is next here on Locked On LA Kings, your team every day. You've heard us talk about FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Well, we have something a little bit different for you. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. With a YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out-of-market NFL game. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment, and you can cancel anytime. And of course, FanDuel is always where you can bet on your favorite sports. Major League Baseball getting close to the playoffs, college football and the NFL just getting going. Join FanDuel, browse the latest betting odds of your favorite sports and teams on the Sportsbook app, and get in on the action. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to download America's #1 sportsbook. All right, we have some more emails to share here on this fan feedback show. This comes from Tim. He is in Playa del Carmen, Mexico. He says, near Cancun. And he says, I agree with you. I don't understand putting Kevin Fiala on the third line. They always say Fiala can play and produce anywhere you put him. Then why not put him with Kopitar and Kempe to ensure he gets the most minutes and to make the most of his creativity? Nothing against Alex Laferriere. It's just that Fiala is a proven high-caliber talent. Can you think of any reason why they're not putting Fiala on the top line? Thanks for all you do, for keeping us informed every day. We appreciate you. Well, thank you, Tim. I appreciate you saying that. I think it's a fair point. I think the reason that they don't just put Kevin Fiala on the top line is that they are looking for balance down, in the tops 9. And I understand that, right? It's not always just about putting the best 3 players on the top line. So I get that. You want balance. You want to have 3 solid lines out there for sure. And look, I talked about how I think Kevin Fiala is the top 6 forward. I think that's where he should play. But again, I understand what the thinking is. I'm not outraged by what's going on. It's just something that I don't even want to say it bothers me. But it's just something it's hard for me to kind of process Kevin Fiala playing on the third line. Now, hopefully, Quentin Byfield does what we think he's going to do, and that's continue to grow and take another step forward and become a solid player. Now moving to center, and if that's the case, and he moves up to the second line and he takes Kevin Fiala with him, then this is all a moot point. But I understand your point, and I don't think it's a crazy idea either, because I think Kevin Fiala is that good. Why not make our top line an elite top line? But again, I think it's about balance. The Kings want 3 really good lines rather than maybe having 1 great line. So I think that's the thinking of why you would see an Alex Laferriere or somebody else on the top line at wing rather than Kevin Fiala. Up next, we have Eric. He is in Brightwood, which is up in the mountains west of Big Bear. He says, hey, Eddie, happy Friday. Any word on the Kings' local TV deal? I think we are all assuming that Bally's will again be the destination. However, the lack of any clarification has me worried for a media market such as Los Angeles. Do you know if any conversations happen around the franchise of perhaps doing an exclusive deal like the Dodgers and Lakers have done? And then he says, P.S. Go Rams. So, Eric, thank you for that. I don't. There's no discussions about the Kings having their own network. At least nothing that is similar to what the Lakers or the Dodgers have here in Los Angeles. The Kings just don't have the financial. Well, I won't say they don't have it, but the Anschutz Entertainment Group is not going to put down the money and invest the money, and the Kings having their own network, frankly, because they don't think they can make money doing that. And the Lakers and the Dodgers, they can. So that's not a reality for the Kings. I think a better example for the Kings is to do something similar to what the Ducks have done. The Dallas Stars are doing this as well, and there's some other teams across the NHL that are getting kind of out of the traditional cable market and creating their own streaming services. So the Ducks are going to offer all their games on free over-the-air TV and on a free streaming service this season. And they feel like that's in their best interest. Obviously, they're not going to be paying Bally Sports to carry their product. Everything they do, all the revenue they get from it is going to them. Of course, they have to pay the expenses to broadcast the games as well. I could see the Kings doing something similar like that. But as far as what's going on this year, the Kings, again, are going to be on Bally Sports this year. How you watched the Kings last season is how you'll watch the Kings this season. That's not going to change for this season. Now, next year, that's a whole different story. And they'll revisit this, and we'll see what the Kings decide to do. But for this season, the Kings are going to be on Bally Sports West, and you can watch them just as you have in the past. A couple more real quick hits. Drew in Long Beach says, I'm excited about the upcoming season. I've been looking, and I can't find out how to watch the Kings preseason games. Do you have any info to pass along? Drew, it's a great question. I've been looking as well. I don't know if we can or how we can watch Monday's preseason opener against Utah. I would say if you're on social media, keep track of all the traditional guys. Talk about Zach Dooley, the Kings insider, and some of the other guys, Russell Morgan, friend of the show, Austin Stanovich of the Hockey News, who covers the Kings. I'm sure any of us that hear how that's going to be the case, and also, of course, LA Kings, follow the LA Kings on social media. As soon as we hear something, we'll definitely pass it along to you guys. But as of right now, I do not know how we'll be able to watch the preseason opener against Utah on Monday, but stay tuned for that. Our final one comes from Eric in Las Vegas. He says, what's the difference between the cheaper and expensive versions of the new jerseys the Kings have? I don't understand why one is almost $500. Well, obviously the Kings have new jerseys, and I'm sure a lot of people are going to be excited to get the new jerseys. I'm a jersey collector, as you guys know if you've watched this show. I have gone on to the Kings official website. I went to shopnhl.com. I haven't seen any of the new jerseys for sale yet. I went to the Team LA website. Again, I have not seen any of the jerseys for sale, so I don't know what Eric is referencing about the $500 jerseys for sale. Obviously, that's a lot of money. The only time I've seen hockey jerseys that expensive was authentic game-worn jerseys. So again, once I see some news on this, I'll definitely pass it along, but have not seen anything yet as far as when and where the Kings' new style of hockey jerseys are going to be available. All right, guys, thank you so much for taking the time to send the emails. Obviously, I appreciate it. The show is literally not possible without you guys. I appreciate you guys bearing with me, doing the show a little bit differently. I hope it sounds okay under some different circumstances, on vacation, in a hotel, on my laptop, late at night here on the East Coast. So hopefully it sounds okay. Hopefully it came off okay. And hopefully you enjoyed another Kings fan feedback show. If you want to be a part of a future show, you can always send an email, lockedoneddie@gmail.com. For you everydayers, coming up next week, we will obviously recap what's been going on with the LA Kings over the weekend during training camp. We'll recap Monday's preseason game against Utah. Certainly hope to give you an injury update on Arthur Kaliev and just keep you updated on what's going on with the Kings as training camp continues, as the roster starts to take shape, and we get ready for another season of Kings hockey. Thank you. If you want to stay interactive with the show, I did want to mention, follow us on X, Twitter, and Instagram. We are at Locked On LA Kings. I'm Eddie Garcia. Thank you as always for listening and watching this episode of Locked On LA Kings, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Have a great weekend. We'll talk to you on Monday. And as always, go Kings go.